My thing is, it probably was the best job available, but people are only looking at the quarterback. And yes, it's a promising quarterback. It's definitely the best quarterback of the jobs that are available currently, right? Because the Atlanta Falcons, who wants to be a part of that, and but
they got pieces over there.
They have that. That's my next thing I was going to say. They have pieces. Ideally, you would just need a quarterback, and you build off that.
Right.
The thing with the Chargers is they're cap struck. They have pieces, but those pieces are just never available. And in a general sense, when you think about the good safety, he comes from you guys, right? Florida State.
Derwin James, yeah.
He's never healthy. He
he came from Florida State, so
no. He's a really good player, but he's just never there when you need him.
And Bosa gets hurt a lot.
You have
Khalil Mack is at the tail end.
I was going to say, then you have older stars. You have a lot of question marks, and you are paying these guys a lot of money. You can't get off of these contracts, and so they're cap struck. You don't have a lot of you just don't have a lot of wiggle room in the team. You just have this promising quarterback. Breaking news, man, right before the show. So as we said, Jim Harbaugh is going to the Los Angeles Chargers. Okay, just coming off of that crazy championship victory. Pink may still think it's flawed, but he got it done in the national championship, won it all, and now he's on to back to the NFL. Where he had some success at.
He had quite a bit of success. He had a very good 49ers team. They went to the Super Bowl. He lost to his brother in the Super Bowl. And but this Chargers, I mean, it's been percolating for a few years that he might go back to the NFL. And then ever since they fired that retarded guy that was coaching the Chargers before, that it's been rumored that he's going to go to the Chargers. Yeah, they have a talented young QB that I happen to think is horribly overrated. They have some other interesting roster pieces. So he walks into a pretty good situation, which if you're Jim Harbaugh, you're not being forced out of Michigan, and you can be patient and pick a job that you want. And I think he's done a good job of that.
My thing is, it probably was the best job available, but people are only looking at the quarterback. And yes, it's a promising quarterback. It's definitely the best quarterback of the jobs that are available currently, right? Because the Atlanta Falcons, who wants to be a part of that, and but
they got pieces over there.
They have that. That's my next thing I was going to say. They have pieces. Ideally, you would just need a quarterback, and you build off that.
Right.
The thing with the Chargers is they're cap struck. They have pieces, but those pieces are just never available. And in a general sense, when you think about the good safety, he comes from you guys, right? Florida State.
Derwin James, yeah.
He's never healthy.
He
came from Florida State, so
no. He's a really good player, but he's just never there when you need him.
And Bosa gets hurt a lot.
You have
Khalil Mack is at the tail end.
I was going to say, then you have older stars. You have a lot of question marks, and you are paying these guys a lot of money. You can't get off of these contracts, and so they're cap struck. You don't have a lot of you just don't have a lot of wiggle room in the team. You just have this promising quarterback. Now, I think it's still a job you have to take because you got the quarterback. You can figure the rest out later.
Definitely.
But also on top of that, you're in you're in Mahomes' division. You got to play. You got to see him twice a year. Okay.
And you're also in the same conference with your brother.
Also in the same conference. And the AFC is just a tougher conference, period. Anyway, we're over here talking about the Detroit Lions can make the Super Bowl. I mean, they're an okay team. But if they're in the AFC, I mean, they're out in the first round. It's a lot of competition over in the AFC. Wow. And so it's tough. But again, all that to say, I think you have to take this job if you want to come to the NFL. Come back to the NFL.
Yeah, I think he had the leverage to take the job he wanted. He picked this one. It's a good opportunity for him. For me, I thought he was an excellent coach. I'm a big Bill Barnwell guy. He does a lot of NFL writing for ESPN. He does a lot of analytics stuff, and he does a lot of evaluating coaches' decisions. And when Harbaugh was with the 49ers, he graded out the best by a mile. And I'm not saying he's always correct, but he had a really good feel for decision making in NFL games, and that bore itself out his time there. So I'm excited to see him in that setting and see what he can do.
But the other thing also is is twofold. Number one, I'm still holding on to the thought if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Andy just might retire, and there's been enough notes about that you might, wait a week or two to see, where that goes. But the second thing, more importantly, shame on the teams that have shaky coaches and just didn't even think or
Dallas Cowboys.
I'm about to say, sound like you're talking about the Cowboys.
or put in the effort to interview these guys. I don't give a shit that you're going to make your current head coach feel, whatever, or you have to have conversations with these guys. You can't just, what you have, Dallas Cowboys. You know what that coach is. You know what Mike McCarthy is. And if there's a guy who can potentially be better in Jim and in Bill Belichick, you have to do your due diligence. The Eagles as well, Nick Sirianni. I know that Nick was just in the Super Bowl last year, but guess what? Those two coordinators that he lost, they went on to be head coaches with other teams. Maybe is it too far fetched to say maybe they carry that team more than Nick did? Because both the offense and the defense took a hard drop. And it's not a coincidence that you lost your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator, and Nick was the only constant, and he didn't replace those guys and do a good job.
And what's specific to Sirianni, he is a guy that I felt last year when they were successful. I think he's a front runner. I don't think he's an adversity coach. And I think when adversity hit this year, he didn't have any answers. And I don't think that he's a particularly good coach. I think he does not move the needle on the sideline, and they would have been justified in moving on from him. Yeah. This is it's professional sports. It's hyper competitive. You're there to win. And if you can't win or somebody can do your job at a better level, you go get that guy.
I think it's that simple.
There's no other reason to sit there and say, well, hey, we're this, that, or the other. And here's the other thing. We talk a lot, particularly in the NBA, like player empowerment, which is good and it's fair and whatever. Players are going to make decisions that's best for them. Teams can't stop doing what's best for them. And if it means running a Super Bowl coach out, 8 or 12, 11 months after the Super Bowl last year, then do it. If it's the best thing for the organization, don't hesitate. Be aggressive.
Yeah.
Fortune favors the brave.
There you go. I mean, we're going to talk about it later, not to bring this up right now, but the Milwaukee Bucks literally just did that.
Yes.
They identified, they said, okay, we know this. We have the number 2 seed, this coach here. He's been doing okay. But we think that Doc Rivers is a better coach, and we don't believe this guy can get it done. The players don't believe in him.
I think the two things happened in the opposite. I think they reached a conclusion that Griffin is not very good.
Yes.
And then they needed to look for better, and then they found Doc.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Doc was hired the same day. I don't think it's a coincidence.
I think that they had to hire a black coach.
Well, we'll talk about it. About it. But I do agree with that. I know.
I didn't know we're that regimented on the show.
We're not.
I've only been here 3 years. What are we doing?
This is a free-flowing show.
Apparently not. I mean, put back in the cage.
No. Come out of the cage, man. Take the bird out of the chest.